I have a story for you about Silverfish before she became Silverfish. And this is when I was working, me, when I was working at a shelter during COVID. Yeah, I did shelter work before I actually ended up on the street. Go figure. Well, this one night, because I always worked overnights, okay? Always worked overnights. This one night, this one guy had been brought in earlier during the day, and he had been by himself out in his own little campsite, away from everybody, away from everything. He did his own hunting. He had hunted a deer, used all the meat, and had done up the hide. The hide was actually drying. Well, something happened, and the cops got word that he was out in this area, and they went out and they destroyed his campsite because he couldn't be there and he couldn't be hunting deer without a license and so on and so forth. And this was during COVID, and they brought him to the hotel where this particular shelter program was at that time. Now you figure, this guy was alone, by himself. He was there for a reason. Now you just put him into a shelter program where, yes, you're only in a room with one other person. However, you can't escape from people. There's like 100 or so other people in this area. You cannot escape, no matter how much you try. And yeah, so you go from being all by yourself to all of a sudden all these people. Plus, you already have some mental health things going on. And now they put you like this. It doesn't usually fare out to be a good thing. Anyways, so I came on to my shift. And this guy, because I work tote, and he was on my section that I had to go check up on, he decided that, hey, I like talking to this person, and this person seems to be settling me down and such. Okay, I seem to have that effect. I don't know, it's just one of those crazy things about me. So I'm like, okay, and I knew he was in distress. It was an obvious thing. Like, all of a sudden, boom, everybody's here. He was in distress. So he came and he was talking. I'm like, okay, but I still have to do this. I'll see you in a little bit. And so I called my supervisor, and I ended up shutting down tote for a bit because I had to deal with an individual who was in distress before they escalated. Okay, that was fine. So we sat out in the hallway and we chatted and so on and so forth. And he told me some very disturbing stories and such. But when you are a shelter worker, you have to be ready to hear pretty much anything. Anything and everything. And let me tell you, there are no filters at all. Zero, zilch, zada. No filters. You will hear every little detail, even if you don't want to. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going, okay. So then he wanted to go out for a smoke. I'm like, okay. So I just radioed the guy who was out doing patrol outside. Just let him know, okay, can you kind of keep other people away from him? He's having his moment. We're trying to keep him down. So he comes back in after being out there and having a little dispute amongst himself and so on and so forth. He comes back in and we sit back down and we get chatting. And my supervisor came over and told me something, and I'm like, oh, how nice. That's okay. And she's like, I've called the police. They're on their way, type thing. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I just sit back down, and he continues discussing such and such. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to go into the bathroom. And I just looked at him and I said, is there anything you need to turn in? Is there anything that you could utilize in the bathroom that would make me have to come barging in on you? Is there anything that I should be worried about in regards to your roommate or such? And he proceeded to pull out a knife that he used for scraping his hides and such. Yeah, it was a good sized knife, we'll say. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you were supposed to turn that in. And he's like, yeah, but I don't feel comfortable, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I need you to give it to me, but here's the plan. If you give me this knife, when I am about to leave my shift, I will give it back to you. You can come and get it back from me. And he thought about it, and he thought about it. Because handing over a knife when you live on the streets and you're in distress is a hard thing to do. You need that for protection, even if it's only mental protection at the time. But he had been going on and on about all these interesting things, and I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to barge in on him doing something, and I'm not going to like it. So he ended up handing the knife over to me, and I'm like, thank you. And he went and did his thing in the room, and I sort of waited and told, because his room was like only 2 rooms down or something. And I showed him that I put his name on it and that I had it in a special little area for him and so on and so forth. And I told him he could just come and he could ask me. And then I went on and we talked a bit more, and he went out again, and then he came back in, and we talked and talked and talked and talked. And then eventually he said, you know what? I think I'm going to go to bed. And I'm like, that'd be a good idea. Just try it out. Lie down in your bed and see if you fall asleep. If you fall asleep, great. If you don't, at least you're lying down and sort of relaxing. And this was hours. And I mean, literally hours. The police showed up about an hour before the end of my shift. So they had been called probably a good 5 hours or so before. That's when they showed up. By that time, I had taken the knife away from him. Actually, he gave it to me willingly. I got him into his bed. So the cops actually had to wake him up to find out what had gone on. And I had kept the place from being damaged. Any damage to him, any damage to his roommate. There was no altercations anywhere else. And I'm like, mind blowing. And as the cops were leaving, because they didn't take him or anything. And I'm thinking he should have gone to Waypoint or something. But that's a different story altogether. But yeah, as the cops were leaving, I'm like, you're welcome. I did your job for you. It could have turned out a whole lot different if you had just shown up on time. But unfortunately, or fortunately, we're not quite sure. Silverfish has this tendency to be able to take things and turn them around in a positive way. And she doesn't know how, she doesn't know why, she just knows that she does. And I hope somebody out there takes this and looks at it from a different view of why it is so difficult to go from being alone or being on the streets and into a shelter. Alrighty, and that's my 25 cents. So everybody go have a productive and creative day.